In the fight for change and justice, sometimes we have to take a moment and stop to count our blessings. Now, we still have work to do, don't get me wrong. But from not being comfortable, from the marches, from the sit-ins, from the revolts, we are now afforded the freedoms to be able to do the things that I see today. I stand here on the red carpet of the birth of a nation, right here in Norfolk, Virginia. Written, starred in, and produced by Nate Parker, a black man. As I look further, I see successful black men and women, actors, actresses, musicians, entrepreneurs, business owners, all coming together, showing love in support of Nate Parker's film about Nat Turner. In his time, none of this was possible. We weren't able to even read. We weren't able to educate ourselves to be able to accomplish these things. We weren't allowed to gather because it was against the law. But yet and still, here we stand. So the Vadio show team thought it was very important before we got here to go to South Hampton County where the whole Nat Turner story took place. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Vadio show. And of course, this is the People Show. This is a special episode. This one is called Legacy, the carrying of the torch of Nat Turner. And I'm here with a special guest, Mr. Khalifa. Ms. Khalifa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yes, sir.
And it's a pleasure to be in your company.
Yes, sir. Same here. You took the words out of my mouth, man. Mm-hmm. I got a few questions to ask you because we have to educate our youth today. All right. There's a story that you have, and you tell it, I think, better than anyone that I've heard. So you have the story of Nat Turner, and you know the ins and outs of this thing. First, I want to ask a question before we get into that. What is your mission? Like, not many people will take and make their life about, you're an author, you publish, you have a lot of stories that you pass on. What is the mission behind all of that?
The mission behind the story of Nat Turner, mm-hmm. The reason we're on to Nat Turner, mm-hmm. is to preserve his legacy and history. Mm-hmm. Because his legacy is wrapped up in the history of African people, mm-hmm. and our resistance to white supremacy oppression.
Okay.
And Nat Turner is the most successful. He was the most successful black freedom fighter who took the fight to the enemy. Mm-hmm. He had no recourse. Mm-hmm. He had no other choice. He just mentioned one time that black people would one day be free, and they almost beat him to death.
Wow.
So I've had people ask me, well, why didn't he take a more peaceful approach to it? Why didn't he couldn't even breathe freedom as a child slave. Mm-hmm. So he fought for it.
Okay.
And we had many, many others who didn't take it laying down.
Yeah.
They fought back for it. And he fought so that we don't have to do what he did in mm-hmm. order to achieve our freedom. We might not have to do what he did in order to achieve our freedom. The story of Nat Turner is just so full of so many lessons mm-hmm. that I have incorporated into my life as best I could, and I'm still uncovering. Mm-hmm. I'm determined that there will be at least one book or one person who tried to keep it as it was, mm-hmm.
I heard you mention the word legacy, and that's what we titled this episode. What does that word mean to you, and what should it mean to all of us?
We all have a legacy, mm-hmm. but whether you're conscious of it or not, the legacy is just a history of the work and the things that you did during your life that made life more bearable for other people.
Gotcha.
The legacy of a person you can look at his legacy and determine how did he live his life. You know, was he a righteous human, or was he a crook? You know, those are legacies too.
How do you feel about today's youth? Today's youth, why is it important for them to know what Nat Turner did?
You should learn from Nat Turner that you can be as black as you want to be and still be successful.
Yeah.
You know, especially in today, or they can look at me. Be as black and strong as you can be, but you're going to still be successful.
Knowledge gets you in a place of power every time.
Absolutely. Wisdom, brother.
Yeah. And that's what we want to show here.
Yeah.
We want to let people understand, though you may not know what a rite of passage is, you know, aggression and ignorance doesn't make you a man, you know? That knowledge and knowing how to guide and build a legacy for those people that are behind you. And that's what we're here today. We're going to come back after the break, and I want to talk more about the story of Nat Turner and why he's so important to us and where we sit today, all right?
Okay.
This is the Vadio Show. Don't you touch that dial. We'll be right back.
The Vadio Show is brought to you by K&D Scrubs Boutique.
The lack of generational wealth in the African American community has never been in sharper focus. Generation One looks at our history.
Hosea 3:6 people perish, people die because of lack of information. The black community is dying.
Generation One. Join us for the movie screening Thursday, October 13th, 7:30 p.m. at the Narrow Theater, Norfolk, Virginia.
The Vadio Show is brought to you by LakeFashion.com.
We got a lot of knowledge and a lot of great information on Nat Turner. Now it's time for my favorite part, the actual Nat Turner tour, where we can see play-by-play and place-by-place where the whole history of Nat Turner happened. Take a ride with me. All right, Miss Khalifa.
The story of Nat Turner, our elders tell us, advise us, never began recounting the history of African people unless we began on the continent of Africa.
Okay.
So we know that Nat Turner's mother and his grandmother was first captured on the continent of Africa and brought into South Hampton County. They were brought in South Hampton County to the auction block. It's at a place called Cross Keys, which would be one of the stops on the Nat Turner Trail tour. But the history of Nat Turner in South Hampton County began in 1797 when Nat Turner's mother, Nancy, and his mother, grandmother, her mother, was brought into South Hampton County by Benjamin Turner, one of the largest landowners in the county, therefore one of the largest slave owners. This was in 1797. In 1799, Nancy became pregnant, and she hated the pregnancy so much, and that's one of the indications that it was a hated pregnancy, and it's just about assured that she was raped by Benjamin Turner. She hated the pregnancy so much that she tried to abort the baby, and they had to tie her up in order for her to give birth to keep her from killing the baby.
Wow.
But fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, she was unsuccessful in her attempt to abort the baby. So on October the 2nd, 1800, Nat Turner was born. He was born with a veil over his face, and when you're born with a veil over your face, it portends that you're destined to be somebody great in the hands of the Almighty. And that's a quote that's laced throughout the story about Nat Turner as he was uncovering the fact that he was a special human on the planet. He grew with the understanding that he was expected to be a great man. And one of the things Nat Turner recounts, when he was 3 or 4 years old, his mother overheard him telling his playmates something that had happened before he was born. Before he was born. And this lended itself to the fact that he would be a prophet one day, to the thought that he would be a prophet one day. A prophet forecasting things that's to happen in the future. And then other things like learning how to read. According to Nat Turner, he had no recollection about exactly when he learned how to read and write. But he was crying one day and somebody gave him a book to stop him from crying, to play with. And to the astonishment of the grown-ups, he started reading the book. And so word spread in the community about he was a special man with special intelligence. And at an early age, he began to act the role. He started experimenting in making certain objects. This was in his youth. To my understanding, his confessions, he tried to make ink, paper, and gunpowder. There's some of the things that he said he tried to make, and he had no doubt that he could have been successful had he had the right materials. That was the confidence Nat Turner had in his ability. In 1810, up to 1810, Nat Turner did not work in the field with the other captive Africans. He was kept in the house, but in 1810, slave master Benjamin Turner died and went to hell. A lot of people don't like me to say he went to hell, but I can't imagine him being any other place than hell, if there's such a place. When a large slave owner dies, there's both dread and jubilation in the slave community. The jubilation is that this cracker is dead now, and he will not be able to visit the brutality on the people anymore. The dread is, and we want to pause right here because we're coming up on the first stop on Nat Turner. We want to go slow, Eben. In the corner back here, legend has it that this is the church that Benjamin Turner built after the colonists defeated the British in the Revolutionary War. After the Revolutionary, yeah, we could pull on down in front of the church so you can see the sign. It was built in 1786. And as we see, this is a Protestant church. We're going to get out here. After the up to the Revolutionary War, the only legal church in North America was the Anglican Church. And after they defeated the British, they didn't want to have anything else to do with the Anglican Church.
Gotcha.
So they founded this Protestant church. Now we'll pause here and take some questions. Anybody have them? And that's the corner where it's alleged that he taught. Here, there in that corner, over there. This is what was pointed out to me. I don't know how, you know how legends go. But we know he was not allowed to preach in the church.
So
but
they
he
had him
became
preach
a preacher.
outside?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you allow me to be a preacher, but I can't go in the church building.
No, sir.
Crazy.
No, sir.
Man, it's got a feeling here, man. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm tripping, but I got a feeling when we pulled up here.
Yes, sir.
I don't know what that is, but I feel a certain energy here.
Yes, that's energy.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes,
So this is where it happened with his preaching.
This is where his preaching started. You know, the slave owners, they made sure that their captives went to church. And the indoctrination started at the very beginning.
Let me ask, that's what I wanted to ask you too. I know that in slavery, and you know I come from the Christian side of things,
Yes,
but in
sir.
slavery they used the Bible and the misinterpretation of the Bible to enforce their rules and also to keep the slaves docile.
Yes.
And I see it ironic that Nat actually used this same Bible, and in reading more scripture, he used that for his decision and to get his vision to actually do the revolt that he
Yes,
did.
yes. He became an authority on the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could quote it.
Mm-hmm.
He perfected his reading and writing coming out of the Bible, and he quotes scripture. And he received these visions that we're going to bring out some of the visions that he had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a visionary.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Trevor Lucas, and this is the Vadio Show. We're out here today at a very special event. This is the pre-screening of The Birth of a Nation here in Norfolk, Virginia. Nate Parker came out, and he was gracious enough to bring it back to his city. We're going to show you some clips. This is going to be a great movie and historic story that everyone needs to hear. This is the Vadio Show. We got more for you to see. Why is it important for people to see this movie and hear this story?
Basically because the history doesn't need to be forgotten. We need to understand, we need to know, we need to respect the struggle.
I am Dr. Patricia Turner, a descendant of Nat Turner, as well as one of the Norfolk 17 who integrated the schools here in Norfolk. And this is my family.
Okay, awesome.
I'm just pleased to be here with my family. They can actually see where we came from, how we got here.
Yeah,
So we can see exactly what we need to do to make things better as well.
no question at all.
My name is Corey Taylor. I am a celebrity manager, also executive producer. I was a TV producer of the SWV Reunited show on WeTV. Also, I have a national radio show called The Coco and Corey Show that comes on every Saturday from 12 to 2 p.m. I also run a national showcase in New York City at SOBs called R&B Spotlight. So I'm glad to be here tonight.
Awesome, awesome. My question for you, I know that this is for the birth of a nation.
Yes.
We have some crazy things happening in the world right now.
Yes.
You know, and it's not that they haven't been happening, but they're coming to the forefront.
Yes.
And people are really frustrated.
Yes.
Do you think that this movie will be able to open people's eyes, other than the black race, to what we're going through? Because, I mean, our history leads up to this right now.
Well, I think that it will cause some people eyes to open, but some people's eyes have already been open, but they refuse to see what's really going on.
True.
They see and don't see.
True.
So this will add more to the dialogue and get us talking even the more. And I'm happy to be out here, and congrats to Nate Parker.
Yes.
And congrats to Virginia,
Yes.
because it helps put us on the map, because I always feel like we're so far behind. So I'm super glad to be here. You know?
Awesome, man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so
problem
much.
at all, man.
All right.
We're still talking about the legacy of Nat Turner, and I'm here with Mr. Khalifa. Now, I got another question for you. We talked about the youth on the last segment. This one, I gotta ask, man, why is that there's a detachment from our history, and we know more about American history than black history?
You probably know how I feel about my generation.
Yeah.
And what we accomplished during the 1960s. We did the job in the 1960s. And now, with the work that we were doing, including Dr. King and Malcolm and Stokely, Kwame Ture, THROUGHT Brown, Huey P. Newton. But us, the generation, the main reason that we're detached, the youth are detached from their history, is we dropped the ball.
Who dropped the ball?
My generation.
How do you feel
They
that way?
went into the corporate world. They didn't teach their children. They took it for granted.
Okay.
Something that they were free. They didn't have to teach them.
They figured that everything was over, we good now.
The elders during the 1960s, us in the 1960s, was teaching our children about the history. And some of those same elders, when they got into the 70s, you can't leave it up to the miseducation system of the United States of America to teach black history to black children.
Yeah.
It is not going to happen. It never happened, and it never will.
Yeah.
They're teaching the part of the history that'll perpetuate their story, but we still must teach our own.
Yeah.
That's the only assurance that they're going to get it. This point was driven home to me when I put my son in Hampton University in 1987.
Okay.
And they had one black history course.
Wow.
And then the students...
in Hampton University?
Yes. He and his class kind of organized themselves to try to lobby for more black history. They wouldn't do it, so they formed a club to teach themselves black history. And that's when I realized that my son had been given these Chancellor Williams and Stolen Legacy books like that to read, but these children didn't have the basic books.
Yeah.
They didn't even know what it meant to have black history.
Well, I would think in the HBCU that you'd have a buffet to choose from when it comes to black history.
Well, the preparation is for the corporate world.
Gotcha.
Corporate America don't like strong black militant people or educated people.
Yeah.
So the Negro who prepare our children for corporate America, when they know white oppressors don't like this, then they're not going to like this.
Gotcha.
You know?
Gotcha.
Fortunately, there's been an awakening across the board for black people.
Some things going on.
Man, I am so fortunate to be alive at this day and time to see this awakening. Even in the ones who a couple of generations ago, you would say was completely lost.
Yeah.
But they're becoming awake. Let's put it that way.
Something is happening. And
we always have to go back to the black youth. The black youth always figured out, when we look at our history, almost every significant movement was precipitated by black youth. Nat Turner's army was an army of black youth, man. Nat Turner was 31. And soldiers in his army was in their teens, 13 and 14, 15.
Wow. I didn't know
Black youth did it. So black youth they got to figure out what's going on now.
You telling me a few things that I didn't know. You know, I knew, he had a certain amount of people. They said, 40 to 50 people, but I didn't know they were that young. Speaking of the things that you're telling me that I didn't know, I want you to let, our audience know a little bit more about Nat Turner's story. I know we're in South Hampton County, if you didn't know that. We're at, Miss Khalifa's house out here. This is where it all really happened. You do a tour of the Nat Turner land and where it all happened, and you do an awesome tour. There's another one actually going on. First, I want to tap into that because there's conflict in his stories, like words like was it insurrection?
Insurrection.
Versus revolt. Could you talk to me about that a little bit and what happened?
Insurrection is a rebellion internally to the system that's doing the oppressing.
Okay.
When you initiate a revolt, you want to overturn the system.
Gotcha.
You have exhausted all other measures. The only other measure to do is turn it over and start all over again.
So which one would you say, from your standpoint, that Nat Turner did?
Nat Turner organized a black liberation army to engineer a revolt.
Okay.
He was out to free every black man, woman, and child. He had given up the internal part. He worked for many years the same way that Barack Obama worked for many years, the same way that I worked for many years as a community organizer.
Yeah.
And as I realized, as Barack Obama realized, and we know that Nat Turner realized, however good you are at organizing black people in the United States of America, it will not be sufficient to impact their lives. So you need additional power.
Okay.
So Barack Obama went on into the system to get more power, and unfortunately I had to leave the community too. I didn't go that far, but
yeah,
you
but
know.
you left the starting
yeah,
point.
Yeah, but I knew I needed resources.
Yeah, yeah.
I needed power.
Yeah.
Nat Turner had his origin. He came into the world with the sign that he was to be a great man. He was to be a significant human on the planet.
Was this a prophecy?
Yes, that was a prophecy. He was born with a veil over his face. And a veil over your face indicates that you're going to be a great man, a great woman, a prophet, or someone great in the hands of the Almighty. So he grew up with that kind of orientation that he was going to be great.
And his parents pushed that?
Yes, he was expected to be great.
Okay.
And he says in his confessions that once he realized he was expected to be great, then he kind of clothed himself in mysticism. He was a great mystic.
Okay.
He was a great mystic. Nat Turner, he kind of set himself up to act the part. That's a great lesson right there. Once you know what you want to be in life, you are permitted to start acting that way now.
Gotcha.
You know, but just don't believe your press releases, as they say,
right? Right.
Yeah, don't overstep. But he grew up as a child, tutored by his grandmother. Now, his grandmother, his maternal grandmother, and his actual mother, Nancy, they came into South Hampton County in 1797. And we hear about his grandmother, his maternal grandmother at that time, but then in the confessions, he's also talking about grandmother who taught him about religion. You know, and she was the one who was making these predictions about him. They said he was too smart to be raised. And if he was ever raised, he would never be any good to anyone as a slave.
Because of his intelligence?
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's what he got from her. But that was his paternal grandmother. They call her Old Bridget. But we don't hear any more about his maternal grandmother and very little about his mother after that. You know, but we know they took the children from the family so they wouldn't be raised properly. But he grew up knowing that he was special. You know, in the time that his mother overheard him telling his playmates when he was 3 or 4 years old, something that had happened before he was born, that just kind of sewed it up.
They just saw him as a prophet.
Right.
Because he knew things that he wasn't here to see, to be able to tell that story.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then one time he says that he was crying and they gave him a book to, you know, to pacify him. And to the amazement of the people, he started reading the book.
Wow.
You know?
And how old was he at this time?
I guess 5 or 6.
Now, I heard about his first owner teaching him different languages and teaching him how to read. How did that?
Now, to me, that's one of the biggest lies that's ever been told about Nat Turner.
Because that's what I'm saying. There's been some misconceptions. I've heard different stories.
I have never seen any documentation to that.
Gotcha. Because the way they're telling it, and they got a few documentaries out there that this man, it was a man that taught him how to read, taught him different languages. They told him that it wasn't smart for him to be teaching a black man, a black slave that. And that's how he got his intelligence, and he went on to preach the gospel to other slaves and things like that until he read more into the Bible and found misinterpretations. And he used the word that he got from the Bible to do his revolt. Now, that's how the story is being told.
Now, I know that Nat Turner's intelligence and precociousness was such that the whole neighborhood knew it, including the slave masters. It's practically assured that Nancy was raped.
That's his mother?
Yes.
Okay.
Nancy, his mother was raped by Benjamin Turner.
Benjamin Turner.
Saying took an interest in Nat Turner. Now, if he did take an interest in Nat Turner to the extent where he would send him to school, as I heard one of the relatives of Nat Turner recounted that fallacy, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Benjamin Turner had other children, illiterate other children.
Yeah.
So if
So
he was
why
not
would he
sending
teach?
anybody to school, why would he send? They didn't even have no schools.
Got you. Okay.
You know, so I don't see how that could. Well, it'll fly unless we tell the story.
That's how they telling it on the History Channel too.
If they have documentation to that, they should bring it forth.
Nobody showed any documentation or gave any type of references of where they got that information from.
Yes,
So,
I have read everything I can get my hands on about Nat Turner. That's certain rights. I don't read. There's some people I don't read. It's useless. Why should I do that? But I have seen nothing that indicates that he had any formal education. None. Zero.
Got you.
You know, and there's some indications that they probably used him like they use all genius black youth.
Yeah.
When they can.
Right.
They're
And took the credit for his information.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just ran into Dr. Newby. She's a historian here at Norfolk State, and I just wanted to talk to her a little bit about the Nat Turner story and why it's important for us to know. I know you're a bit of a historian, okay?
Yes.
With the story of Nat Turner, why is it important for this story to be passed down and told?
You know, the Nat Turner story is really a story about slavery and race in this country, and how when African Americans take their freedom by force, which is something that David Walker talked about in his appeal, and that was published in 1829, where African Americans should claim the ideas of the American Revolution, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so when he actually put that in action, there was a reaction to that. And while it didn't, they believed it had to be violent. I wasn't there. I'm not going to comment on whether that was right or wrong, but certainly their lives were filled with violence. There was the violence of punishment if they didn't work hard enough. There was the violence of separation from their families. There was the violence of just being a slave and being owned by another person and being regarded not as a human being, but as an animal, as chattel, as a pig or a horse or a cow. And so this story has been retold so many times by white America, interviewing the descendants of some of the survivors from white America, but the story has not been told by African Americans from their perspective of why have this revolt? Blacks have been vilified as evil, as criminals, as hateful, and even the color of Nat Turner, the way they've depicted him is they've darkened his skin, when indeed in the records he was categorized, he was described as a light-skinned African American. And so the shift then to finally talking about this human being and the choices that he made and why he perhaps made those choices and the violent afterflow following that revolution is, I think, very important for us to go back. We're in 2016, and it's time that we begin to go back to looking again at history and putting correctives, because the history has been written to support white America and the white power structure, and erasing this issue of slavery as if it's a chapter in the history. These weren't slaves, they were more family members, servants. Oh, they loved, their masters and all of that, and to really shifting it to the more correct narrative that while you had a handful of people who may have felt that way, the vast majority, I'm always reminded of what someone said in the ex-slave interviews in the 1930s. He said, if somebody told me I had to be a slave again, well, I'd just kill myself. And I think that is perhaps, that statement is perhaps the most accurate description of the horrors of slavery and what happens then when you try to hold people in slavery, in bondage. And you think about the aftermath of the Nat Turner revolt. Nat Turner's wife was tortured after following the revolt to reveal information that she had about her husband. We don't know all of that story. But hopefully, as historians begin to look again, that they look through a different lens and begin to develop mechanisms to record these oral accounts that were passed down generationally in what was South Hampton County with the descendants of Nat Turner.
Well, speaking of passed down, and we're looking at a lot of racial issues going on out here right now. You know, things are really tense when it comes to the policing and things like that. But a lot of people seem to have forgotten those stories of our history. Do you feel as if our generation today is detached from their history, and if so, why?
I think that history has been managed, and it's been managed by those who are in power and control. And I'm not a big fan of the standards of learning. I think that they've done more harm than good, especially in terms of helping our young people to understand our past and why things have happened. They've really been controlled by the politicians in power to encourage people to only think that the only relevant people were white men who were the founders or the controllers of the political machines.
Kind of a mental warfare, if you will.
Absolutely. But one of the things that I think, 2016, we're in 2016, and that means that we're really only 16 years into the 21st century. And historians and sociologists tell you that it takes about 20 years to actually get into a new century. And I think we're at a precipice. We are leaving that past that W.B. Du Bois talked about, that the problem of the 20th century will be the color line. And we're moving into another type of generation. The millennials, for example, are finally starting to ask the questions that the Gen Xers did not ask about their past, and that the baby boomers wanted to forget, because the baby boomers were brought up in segregation, and there's a lot of pain associated with that time period and high expectations that were not met, that we would move into a society that was different. So here we are, and the millennials are saying, well, wait a minute now, why are we in the situation that we're in? And they're starting to advocate and demand change. And when young people say they want to carve out a different path than their parents or their grandparents, that's when we know we have raised up leaders to hopefully take us into the 21st century and into a different future.
No doubt about it. And that's what it's all about, passing on the torch and bringing progress to our people. This is the Vadio Show. This is Dr. Newman. I thank you so much. All right?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The Vadio Show is brought to you by The Maximized Life.
Someone once said, getting there is half the fun. From downtown to Old Town, Go Past 365 connects you to entertainment, restaurants, friends. Go Past 365. Find out more at gopast365.com.
The Vadio Show is brought to you by CDK Home Health Care.
Yeah. Okay. I had ended back there when the slave master, a slave owner, excuse me, Benjamin Turner had died, and upon the death of a slave owner, the jubilation in the slave quarters is the fact that he will not be able to visit brutality on them any longer or anymore. But there's also dread in the community, because if he's a large slave owner, the chances of all of the slaves stand together, the captives stand together, is remote. It wouldn't happen. So they knew families was going to be split up and sold away and never to be seen again forever. And the ones who were fortunate enough, so to speak, to be sold to slave owners in the area, they were the ones who were considered fortunate in that they were not split up and sold down the river into the South. Nat Turner, being the owner of Benjamin Turner, who had a son, he was inherited by his son. His son's name was Samuel Turner. And Samuel Turner inherited Nat Turner and his mother, Nancy, and his grandmother, and they don't say it was his maternal grandmother. We think it was his paternal grandmother, Old Bridget they call it, the one who was the teacher of Nat Turner. So, and another thing that slaves, captives, did not like to be done is being sold to a small plantation, sold to poor white trash, because they had to work right out there in the field with the slave, and a lot of times they were working to death. And in this case, Samuel Turner was a small owner, and I guess he tried to work them to death. Slow down, Ibn. Coming to the next, right at the end of this, slow down. This field here is a crop now, but at the time of the revolt, this was the home plantation area for Nat Turner. That was at the Joseph Travis plantation. And further on, as we get into the story, Joseph Travis, and the next one over would be Salatha Francis, which Salatha Francis was a member of that infamous Francis family.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then further on still would be Elizabeth Turner. And we think that Elizabeth Turner was the widow of the original Benjamin Turner.
Wow.
Slave owner. Okay, so we can go on. We're going to go up here and make a right turn rather than go back there to the house of where Nat Turner's living descendant lived. Samuel Turner did not succeed in overworking Nat Turner. He worked himself sick himself. He took sick in 1822 or 1822, and when he took sick, he hired an overseer to work Nat Turner. And the overseer, according to a legend, Nat Turner, that he just mentioned that one day black people would be free, and for this, he gave him a severe beating. Nat Turner reacted by running away. Up to that time, with all the smarts Nat Turner had, he became a servant for black people. He started doing community organizing work even in his 20s, in his teens, you know, but he ran away, and he was gone for 30 days. And while he was away for those 30 days, he did a lot of studying and praying. This is one of the most sacred spots. This place up here, before you get to the hedge of trees, that's where a cabin where Nat Turner's wife lived with the children. Nat Turner's wife's name was Cherry.
Okay.
And she lived here with his children. And there's always been speculation about where Nat Turner was on the day that the revolt started. We have reason to believe he at least visited his wife and children.
So the cabin was right out here.
It's right up here at the edge of that field, and I have pictures of people coming, streaming up here, getting off of the bus down there and coming in like they're going to a pilgrimage. But one day, I brought a tour group out here, and we came up in here to visit the cabin as usual, and the cabin was down. Somebody had taken it down.
Wow. So recently the cabin was still up here.
Yes.
But
yes.
somebody came and knocked it down.
No, they didn't take it and knock it down. The same Francis family. The Turner family do not farm the land. The land. The land is farmed. They rent this farm to the Francis family. And it's a big farm. This is the land over here. This land is owned. It's a 380 tract of land by Nat Turner's living descendants. They own that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was purchased at the Turner.
Say, how did they come to own it?
It was purchased by a family member.
Okay.
Nat Turner's descendants survived because the Indians hid out a female member. And I had the good fortune of meeting Miss. Any reason you stop here?
Oh, you want to keep going? Okay.
You know, I'm going up here and turn around and stop where the cabin was. But anyway, that's how it came in there. And then a woman married a guy named Turner.
Okay.
And that's how they came into this land.
Nice.
He bought the land.
That's a blessing right there in itself.
Yeah, yes it is.
That was very
And the land has a lot of stress. What they did, like tearing this cabin down, and some of the other structures that was on black land, they convinced them to tear the structures down, and then they started getting the money in to develop the tour.
Gotcha.
You know how
always coming back down to the money, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And from here, you heard of the caves where he was finally recaptured? From here, the caves is straight back through these woods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now there was misconception on that. I heard somebody say a farmer found him, and I heard another story where somebody from the militia found him in a hole.
So he was away. He ran away. We're gonna go back now and continue. He ran away for 30 days, and while he was away, according to Nat Turner, he spent his time in fasting and prayer.
Okay.
And when you fast and pray, you get proper knowledge of self. You get knowledge of self. And it came to him what his mission was. He received his first major vision while he was out there. And the vision said, Nat Turner had a favorite biblical verse that he quoted. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else will be added. The vision told him, the Spirit appeared to him and told him he was too concerned about the things of this world, that he should first seek the kingdom, and then all else would be added. But along with that came his vision on what his mission, mission on what he was supposed to do. He realized what he had to do, and to fulfill his mission, he needed resources. He needed human resources, and he needed weapons.
Yeah.
So the most readily available place to get both was back on the plantation.
Gotcha.
So he left and went back to the plantation.
So he could see that mission through.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes, to get those resources. And he went back to did a ridicule of his fellow captives. They ridiculed him, selling him. He was so smart. He was away, and he had returned.
Right.
That
Why
he
would
was
you
a
come
dumb,
back?
Yeah,
Right.
He signified on him. He was just a dumb so-and-so.
I know that this movie is a great story about Black history, but this also is a situation that is affecting everyone. when it comes to race and things like that. How do you feel about race today, and why is this movie important for everyone to see, not just a black movie?
It's the story of America. I mean, it's what happened. We don't need to, hide it. It needs to be brought to the forefront so more people see what went on. That way they can understand what the struggle was as opposed to just what they think they know, and what they've heard.
Right.
It needs to be brought in the forefront. More people need to see it. They need to understand what the African American people went through. Without knowing the history, you can't say what the struggle is today without knowing what the struggle was then. So I think it's something, it's gonna start conversations. Hopefully those conversations go towards change.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the good that's going to come out of all the bad that's happened throughout the years.
We have a lot of issues in our community going on right now, okay? And it seems like a movie like this puts a lot of pride in who we are and where we come from. Do you feel like versus back then, say the civil rights movement, back in 1831 when slavery was going on, has our pride changed?
Well, I think our pride hasn't changed, but we've become comfortable with society, and we're letting little things go, and I think a movie like this will instill the pride in us to fight for what's right. We should call a spade. If it's wrong, call it wrong. And if you step on toes, it's okay. It's no gray areas in justice. It's either right or it's wrong.
I can't agree more. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the night. Yes, ma'am. Nice to see you in person.
Likewise.
This was on That's So Raven as The Boys in Motion. Jumped on a show called One Tree Hill, was a series regular on there, and did films after that called Bring It On, Scorpion King, and guest starred on Reno 911, Scrubs, CSI, Hawaii Five-0, a bunch of things.
Why do you think it's important for people to understand where we come from, to know why we're here? Because we're having a lot of racial situations going on, a lot of tension with policing and things like that. Why is it important to understand why we're here?
I think in any situation, even when you're working out, to remember what weight you were, what that did to your body, how it took a toll on your organs, and just you sweating when you took one flight of stairs. It's just remembering the past, whether it be negative or positive, but especially negative in this situation, that reminds you not to go back to that.
Anybody that knows me, I'm very much an activist and believe in what's right, and Virginia have that kind of history. And to say the least, we want to train or teach our children, and hopefully they hold it. And I am very, very proud to be Nate's aunt, to see that he is staying true to himself, and not only take it to a level of the big screen in the big cities, but come back home and make it known that he haven't forgot where he came from.
That's always awesome. And he's carrying the torch of such a great story that means a lot to where we stand today.
Absolutely.
So, Nate, big up, and y'all keep watching. This is The Vadio Show. We got to get a little bit deeper into this, man, because, again, there's multiple stories going on.
There's another tour. The clerk of the county, one of the highest elected officials, is the clerk of courts for South Hampton County. I know him. He enjoys a particular status among black people. His family is Francis. That was about the 7th or 8th family that was attacked during the revolt. The only reason this guy is alive is because a male member was not at home. Wiley Francis was the name of that relative back at the time when Nat Turner was not at home.
Whenever Nat Turner came through their house.
When he came in, this guy's father founded an organization called the South Hampton County Historical Society. And when we came into the county in 1990, we knew where we were, and we found out soon enough about the South Hampton County Historical Society, who, to my understanding, didn't even have Nat Turner in their books.
Wow.
Once we started doing our work, then of course, they kind of came out with some stuff. But you have to give a man credit for what he make. He was not supposed to be the clerk of courts. When the old guy died, the white people in here, they knew who they wanted to
take charge of that situation.
But Rick Francis won. Black people elected Rick Francis.
Oh, okay.
This is majority black county.
Okay, okay.
And the first thing he did was integrate his office. First term.
He integrated the office.
Yeah. The city government is governed by a board of supervisors by black people.
Okay.
But you go into these different offices, the departments and stuff, except for social services, they didn't have it integrated.
Gotcha.
And he made a secretary.
So to me, we're talking slave owners, ancestors, okay, are running the government-funded tour for Nat Turner.
Yeah, it's not government funding.
Okay, all right.
Government, when they got the $500,000 matching grant, then I went over here to see Dallas Green, Chairman Dallas Green, who helped to lay bricks on my house. He's the chairman of the board of supervisors here, and he's my neighbor.
Nice.
So I went in there and asked about that money. Was I entitled to any of that money?
Right.
They said no. They wrote a grant for that money.
Wouldn't that be? But to me, it seemed like it would kind of be a slap in the face to have the slave owner's ancestor to do a tour right alongside of you, and them to be able to get a grant. I'm just asking this, just putting it out in the wind.
It's private funding, you know.
Right, so they can get whatever.
That's what he told me.
Okay.
They wrote a grant to get that.
Okay.
But they wanted the government to match the grant.
Gotcha.
And they wouldn't match it.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what happened to it after that. I don't know if they got a match someplace else.
Gotcha. Okay.
I didn't read any places that they get. All I know is they're doing a lot of building, and they're going ahead with developing the tour, the Nat Turner Trail Tour. They right now they intend to. They see it's been long enough from the time of Nat Turner, where now they can make some money on its legacy.
Right.
And if we were not here doing our work, you know, they would have a cakewalk.
Exactly.
They thought they could do what they did with Malcolm X.
Gotcha.
You know, they hated Malcolm X, man. But then when they thought they could make some money,
let's go ahead and pull him back in here.
Yeah. But Nat Turner's a little different. His story is so documented
that you can't really lie too much?
No.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm going to go to break, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think that it's very important, being that we're talking about legacy, why we should hold on to our stories and make sure that we tell it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Make sure that we pass on to our youth the right story, and make sure that we support each other to make sure that legacies are held together.
Yes.
So just want to make that clear, and just know, you know, when you come out to do a tour here, Mr. Khalifa is the guy to see.
Yeah, but can I?
No, go ahead.
I know I didn't address myself to your full question. The South Hampton County Historical Society. I happen not to begrudge them telling that side of the story of Nat Turner. I know white people are going to do what they do, and I know Khalifa's going to do what I do. You know, and I know Nat Turner visited something tough on their family. So they do have a story to tell.
Okay.
But they don't have our story to tell.
Right.
To them, he was a villain. To us, he was a hero, and will always be a hero.
That's clear.
That's it.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. This is the Vadio show, and that's the difference. But keep that legacy going. We'll see you after the break. support is key.
Support is very crucial. My thing is this. I mean, I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. I was just saying that before. I mean, I've been on Wall Street. I own a Sake brand now. Me and my business partner just opened up a bar. We're doing some more things down here. And we support everybody.
Right.
You know, like tonight, I'm one of the sponsors for the event tonight along with Bel Air.
Awesome.
You know, Taiku, we are in the building. I brought some more things out as well.
Okay.
And it's all about support, man. All day long, that's all we talk about. Even as a bar, we support other bars all around because it's not just about yourself.
There's enough money out here for everybody.
It is. You know, I've been blessed to make a decent amount of it, so I definitely want to make sure I can help others do the same and just support what I got going on here.
No question.
And I mean, I was just telling them, you know, the first paper I wrote was on Nat Turner.
Awesome.
So seeing a gentleman come here from Norfolk, which is the same area I'm from, direct and star this film, I'm excited.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited for this, so I look forward to it.
And this is inspiration to see folks like you guys self that made it.
It is, and it's like we made it without playing ball or selling drugs or,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? We made it by being intelligent and doing things outside the box.
We're all here to support Nate Park and what he has going on with the movie. And of course, it's a great story, but the support is extremely important. Why is support important?
Well, I think mainly anything, you could look back to anything. It's a team. Everything is a team, a congregation of people. So it's like you can't really do it by yourself. It's not really many people that have done it strictly by themselves. No. So,
I mean, you got my boy Kevin Lyles, my man Trey Songz. VA, it's a lot that came out of here. Just remember that.
Yeah, man.
And like I said, the original thing I heard was Virginia's for lovers. So let's bring it back to that. Virginia's for lovers, Virginia's for support.
No question at all.
All day.
Appreciate you, my brother.
My pleasure, man. Good
All right,
seeing you.
man. Much success in all you do.
Thank you.
So when's this thing gonna go into?
You come from this area.
That's right.
All right? Tidewater Park.
That's right.
There's a lot of people that look up to you as an inspiration because a lot of people in Tidewater Park don't think they can get out of there.
That's right.
What would you say to that person that has a lot of talent inside, but from looking at TV, looking at the racial situation, looking at the climate of hate that happens, they feel hopeless? What do you say to that person looking at you as making it out?
I would say don't let this moment dictate your future. You know, we're bigger than our current circumstance. And I think Nat Turner teaches us that. He reminds us that longer before we were here, there are people that stood up, you know, for us, for our children and our children's children. You know, no one can stop you from planting a seed. We plant a seed and we may not be able to see the fruit, but those behind us and those behind them absolutely will. I think that's what Nat Turner teaches us, and that's what I'm trying to do with my art. Create a legacy that those young people that look around and can say, he came from Tidewater Park. Not only is he doing okay or with success, but he's actually doing successful things by telling our stories, not forgetting us.
Yes, sir.
You know, so I would say whatever your occupation is, whatever you're doing, whatever your goal is, make our plight as people, make alleviating the oppression on us your agenda, not just a charity moment. That's what I'm trying to do.
Awesome. If Nat Turner was living right now, looking at this situation, looking at you doing this story, what do you think it would say?
Hopefully he would say, continue to rebel. We have to stand against any injustice we see every day and have a riotous disposition towards it. That's what I think he would want of us.
You are an inspiration, sir. Thank you so much.
So Nat Turner would take analysis of what's going on, and he would come up with a solution. He came up with a solution as a chattel slave. And the power of that brother, man, the power of Nat Turner was so awesome. Here, man, in chattel slavery, with the wisdom, the genius to overcome his own fear and get these other up to 100 soldiers and organize a black liberation army and convince them to overcome their fear of this brute. This guy, he's been more deadly, man. He was just openly killing them, brutalizing them. But he got people to overcome that fear. What a man, what a power, the power of Nat Turner.
Yeah.
Good gracious alive.
I won't be long. I'm home. I have a confession to make. I grew up less than a half mile from here in Tidewater Park. Anyone need to know? So So when I stand in front of you, it's not as Nate the actor, Nate the filmmaker, it is Nate the homeboy. The people from here, you know what I'm talking about. I made a film called The Birth of a Nation. I wanted to make sure that on this tour, I visited home, that we had the opportunity to see this film before it was introduced to the world. So we had the opportunity to celebrate Nat Turner on the land in which he rebelled. Why is that important? Well, I grew up Tidewater Park on Ruffner Street, and my context, who knows Ruffner Street? Okay. My context when it came to black history was reduced to Sally Struthers and her walk through the neighborhoods for 70 cents a day. Do you remember those commercials between the cartoons? I was introduced to my blackness, my Africanness through those commercials. It wasn't through any type of education in school. I didn't learn about Nat Turner until I actually got to college, until I was an adult. And I learned about someone who looked like me, who contributed to the fabric of this country. And I learned that he wasn't the only one. So often we learn about this country, we learn about how great it is. We don't learn about the people who have made it what it is right now today. And so many of them looked just like us. Because when you believe that your existence started in the bottom of a slave ship, then anything better than that is living, and it's okay. We've accepted a narrative that starts us in such a terrible place, but doesn't tell us of the richness that comes from before slavery. Slavery was just a small, small piece of who we are. A small piece of triumph, I call it. I always say, either something systemic has happened, or we're just inferior people. Either we're inferior, that's why we haven't caught up, or something systemic has happened in this country that is creating the atmosphere that we're living in right now. When we ask ourselves, in this room, what can we do? We have to assert ourselves in a way that we are part of the solution rather than the problem. For me, I'm a filmmaker. How many theater students in here? I know we're in the theater department. Right? How many writers? How many directors? And other, because other's important, whether you're a doctor, whatever you're aspiring to do. Right? We have the power to tell stories. We have the power to correct revisionist history. And we have the power to pass that down to our children. How come we're taken out of the narrative? What is to be lost from this country by telling us who we are identity-wise? I can tell you what I think is to be gained by us really understanding our identity as a country. If we really knew who we were as a country, as America, in my opinion, then we can create solutions. But as long as we have a false sense of self in this country as to who we really are, then we won't be able to be productive in creating solutions for our communities. I always say a healthier black community is a healthier United States of America. Make no mistake. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what are we leaving for our children's children? Not a car for our kid that can grow up and drive, but our children's children. Someone bled for this land, for this air. Nat Turner bled for this air. And so many people that will never, ever learn about that sacrifice. Because with our people, the only people that are not allowed to fight for our freedom. When America was founded on a rebellion. But a lot of people don't know, so we need to educate them. I heard Ms. Alexander talk about the importance of African American studies. I beg you to take the course. I beg you.